DJ Lamonka is dressed by Urban Soul. Find them at Fields Mall CBD, shop number 25 in Gaborone, Botswana.
Looking at our landscape, our resources, what actually do we have opportunities to build? Solar rich, battery technology is huge in the solar space. Developing a longer lasting, cheaper, more effective battery is the race constantly. Why can't we turn into a hub for battery development? A couple of accounts were saying this is one of the most underrated AKA verses. I mean, even for Channel O's, I think they did a top 10 features. I think it was at number 3 or something like that.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean? So yeah, mad love for Mega Man. Like, you know, my job that I quit was 11,000 kula salary plus benefits. You know what I mean? In this day and age, look, and this is in a marketing space, in a marketing exec role. You know, in this day and age, while we tell for that same workload, that same profile, well, we feel like one are fortunate to be earning about 6,000 or something.
Yo.
Yes, sir.
Introduce.
Yes, sir. Le Monka Taiva.
Yes. Khame, ba mutse as the game, na ke mutse as Khame.
For sure.
Ke batla re simolola go tshimologong.
Erra.
O bonetse kae, o goletse kae?
Okay.
Before re tsena mo musicing.
Okay. Khame go a bona bantsi.
Yes.
O tsutse go Mahalape. Ngwaga wa 1986. Turning 40 next year. It's so real. Skolo ke simolotse gone kwa crash look and learn. Motsadi ke ene tota na le kwa ka tiro, as in my mom. She was the head teacher go Parwe. So yeah, you know the story. When your parent, at least one, is in education, you know where you have to hit the books hard. So ke rudle kabuka, you know, but also enjoying a lot of content in terms of entertainment, films, TV series, music, animation, you know. We moved from Mahalape to Mulepole when I was 6. Kisimulutso skolo gone ko Merriweather, since bidu skolo sa bo Merriweather. And then after that, I came to Gabs, Simola Standard 3. And yeah, this is where my formative years and growing into myself happened. Last born and that. 4. Last born tendencies. but I try not to have last born tendencies. I think I'm pretty responsible, and yeah, first born. But all love and respect to my older siblings.
Sure. And then the music bag, what's happening?
Sure. I think that the music bag sale anything, because I can take a holana, you know, from the pinang and it's any Tameka, I can see the TV, needing kata, especially the connect other interests like animation. Funny enough, I'm thinking of a song on Paul McCartney. We All Stand Together.
Yeah,
back in the day,
together.
Yeah, if you remember the video Nalidi cartoon, it was like animation and the frogs were singing with like a deep bass voice, you know. So I remember that vividly, and I must have been like maybe 5 or 6 or something, you know. So from that time, such, you know, by the time I'm hearing Bo Heavy D, you know, as a kid, MC Hammer time, MC Hammer cartoons, you know, we were on there. You know, everything is coming together. I'm starting to rap little things that I'm hearing. I mean, already Haiku Tapina, I would be mimicking it, you know. I remember the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles opening song, like, cause Galanegele blind, they got way up there, like, until a point where by standard 7, I think I'm 11 years old at that point, I'm entering the KTV talent show. There used to be a big talent show for kids here at KTV, you know. Shout out Mnet and, you know, MultiChoice for all the talent development that they did back then, you know. And I don't think a lot of people understood what they were doing.
I was on KTV, I thought it was South Africa.
Yeah, no, but KTV talent show would come to Botswana. And I remember there was even little clips and stuff that would even make it onto TV, you know. I think my first TV appearance was probably then, even long before Channel O's or whatever. Somebody find that archive, we need it, you know. So yeah, by the time I'm in high school, I'm already a huge fan, you know, as in a deep religious music fan, and starting to try make my own little raps instead of just copying what I'm hearing. So yeah, by end of high school, you should go to Rap Activity Jam, and rest is history pretty much.
So there was a Rap Activity Jam in South Africa.
Yeah.
Botswana.
Yes.
Okay.
That
DJ Sid.
No, Rap Activity Jam Kwano was on Yarona FM.
Okay.
Sid wasn't there. He was on other stations and stuff. But shout him out, man. Peace Side.
Yeah.
Huge. You know, with Rap Activity at the time, I think they hosted we went from Big Duke, Borob Star, you know. And it was, I think, again, a wonderful product. They cinema, you know, and it was a mold that was cut from a regional level or a country specific, you know, it roll you out the YFM go Josie. It's funny because I made the semifinals when I tried it, Kwan. And basically barely a month or two after that, I'm putting out a single and stuff now. I'm on the radar. Schizo's willing to give me a shot after, well, we bought studio time, Lebo Cabo, but the story starts there in terms of starting to really get access. I took the same.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You're fast, you're too fast.
Yeah, but I want you to know,
okay,
Rap Activity.
Yes.
I did the same thing from Haiket Limona, Haiket Sanako Josie. I did.
Oh yeah, even this side, yeah.
I won 1 month.
Yeah.
I got cooked for actually I won 1 week, and then I got cooked for the battle, the other fighter, Adomis.
Yeah. I don't know.
MC from back in the day.
He's a beast. He's a beast.
So yeah, that's my story. Shout out Sprite for what they used to do with that. Bring back hip hop, corporate interventions, please.
Yeah, man. Then you mentioned Cab.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're in a group.
Cab and Samba are such an amazing story for me. A story that's bigger than music. It's a brotherhood story. Cab, basically, we met as kids growing up, same church. Samba, I think it was Yone Kanya's girl. They went to the same high school, and one of my best friends still to date, you know, Obaken Sebetala, went to the same school, Lekhai. So like this whole circle of friends ended up coming from there, you know. Again, a lot of us are still close, guys like Boslo and, you know. So with Cab and Samba, I can't even remember how we started rapping together, but I think Nelis when you somebody Saifa, Ing, and you know, these guys are nice, they're really dope, you know. And I used to feel like, okay, maybe I'm biased because I haven't gone anywhere and seen anything much yet. So by the time now I'm in SA and starting to move around, I'm like, yo, I wasn't biased. These guys are really incredible. We took a first step together actually in terms of to build careers. From 5. Back then we how hits us girl or batla span because Motsaidi o khaogana lo yena ka my dear tuck shop my dear spala moeng o khaogana lo yena la ka le hitsa go kwala. So how we hustled. Things like the call center job were very popular, you know. I managed to get one go BTC as a filing clerk in the HR department. Call center re reka studio time go Schizo. that's how we made Bomule Begape, and an album called Long Time Coming, which unfortunately I think we cursed ourselves with that name because it was never released. To this day we've never released an entire project. It's crazy because we've only recently got back to studio about 2 months ago. Go Skizo. Right now we've got like 6 songs deep for an EP. One of them includes a feature with Third Mind, actually.
That's dope.
Lebo Michelle. So it's really exciting to see Botswana hip hop legends and pioneers in that adult contemporary space now, which I've always felt Motswako was way ahead of the curve with. Marua Pula, adult contemporary album. Motso Afrika, Amanzi, Mafokoame. That sound, not just the sonics of it, but even the subject matter, life and grown man biz, as we say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about what we have to offer now more than ever. I mean, you've heard the social media buzz. Yo, if you're a rap over 35, keep rapping. We're not sure about what's in the mainstream, and that's not knocking everything in the mainstream. I love some of that energy, even if it's not necessarily in my favorite list in terms of boom bap or lyricist rap. You know what I mean? Melody rap, I love that. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Dope. So you guys last pana go skida, and you stayed behind to record an album. Or how did that work?
Okay. So what ended up happening was, from the time when we were recording the project, like after Rituel, I think I was so hungry that I was like there all the time. You know what I mean? I think I was there even when I didn't need to be there. You know what I mean? And I found myself jumping onto features and just doing a lot. And at the time, Skizo was starting Forensic Records. He had acts like THABO, Lesh, on a Kwaito side of things. He was coming off of Afro Blue, so also in the house lane, even house Kwasa lane, huge credit for something that I feel like he doesn't get enough credit for, pioneering in Botswana, so he vibed with what I was doing and was like, yo, I'll give you an opportunity for a solo project, so we did a deal for what would be Corners, Clubs and Churches. Again, another unreleased project, unfortunately, but this one, the best part was it wasn't just one single like with Cab that we'd released. We ended up releasing 2 singles, being Bozata City, which was such a great debut for me, and then 2 being Imagination, which I mean, literally ended up being a #1 song for the year on the most popular youth station.
Is it?
Yeah, like it was #1 on Yarona's top 100 countdown for that year. And it's something that
I saw it on Channel O.
Yeah. It earned me my first nomination. And fun fact, my first nomination wasn't even hip hop; it was Best Dancehall.
Is it?
Yeah, me and Staga were with Bo Buffalo Soldier. So and again, even in terms of continental appeal, first song I got to perform on an international TV platform across the continent was Imagination Go Big Brother.
Oh, dope.
With Staga,
How did you meet Staga?
Oh, Staga was like friends with my brother.
Yeah.
But that Staga mana. So I mean, I was very blessed that my big brother Lifika Bansi, aka Fiki Boy, was like cool cat in the city from jump. You know what I mean? My cheeky, my keta ways, my gas, my you.
Yeah.
So he grew up with a lot of these guys. They went to MAP together. And it ended up being one of those things where, as now I'm starting to cut my teeth, in the culture, even just like, getting a little naughty, trying to sneak out nights to go to clubs or whatever. I'm lucky enough to have a big brother that can look out for me, and at his place one time, actually, when I'm starting to really get into the rap thing, that's when I was still rapping people's verses and stuff. I was rapping Full Clip, Gangsta, and what you call it, Staga was there, so we ended up like kind of getting into a little bit of a cipher, You know, I think actually later on, I might be confusing times, but yeah, there was a cypher where I got a chance now to start, you know, sharing some of what my potential was, you know, and yeah, eventually it went full circle because Hare Lugoski, Richuna, Corners Clubs and Churches, when we're doing Imagination, and when it's pretty much near complete, Schizo was like, yo, the perfect person for this is Staga. And now back then, I didn't even know whether he could flip like on a patois dance hall level like that, you know? So, yeah.
He's Jamaican, half Jamaican,
He's
half
Jamaican.
So, Jamaican, British, Botswana, I don't understand.
Exactly. It's like Seswa with tea and plantain or something.
Yeah. Shout out to Staga, man. That's my dude.
A bad man. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, when I think back to what he has done, you know, and how he elevated Botswana rap as a rap star, you know, it was wonderful to hear him being given flowers yesterday. Like Bokuli Kuli actually said they saw Staga as, you know, Casper before Casper.
Same here, man. Same here. When I saw that music video, I'm like, okay, come on,
they shut the bridge down.
Yeah, like come on.
They had choppers, the Beamer.
Okay, no, definitely not South Africa.
The Beamer convoys, and I tell guys, when kids today say it was a movie or we're making a movie, whatever, dude, like you're playing, dog. You're shooting on your camera. I mean, on your camera phone. Like, with all due respect, this is small time versus the kind of production level we're talking about when those guys were shooting. It gets crazy. Can I tell guys, the drone shots you take lightly today, back then you had to hire a chopper.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Yep. Just the money for the chopper alone. Forget the camera operator and all of that. This is stuff that we literally saw only in the movies.
Yeah.
Hollywood level size blockbusters. You know, there was a conversation not long back around best music video to ever come out of Botswana. And I was happy to see a couple of people still remember and still acknowledge what they did. The benchmark set, to be honest, still hasn't been eclipsed. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if that video back then cost at least $250,000.
Yeah.
At least.
No, I believe you.
You know what I mean? And we thought by the time we were shooting Bush Champagne music at 25, 30K odd, Nerifilar. What's that about?
I can't go to like, but they better play this music video.
Yo, you know what I mean? And it's interesting when you're industry dinosaur for lack of political correctness, because you get to see all the different stages of, you know, technology diffusing. You know, now we're in the era of the visualizer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It took me forever.
What's the hell? So you shoot a video before the video.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all these things, but for me, they're exciting and they keep you on your toes. You know, you're hungry, you want to learn more. You know, stay tapped in, you know what I mean, without necessarily trying to be something you're not, you know, still within the mold of my audiences, my values, you know, type of thing.
All right, cool. So there's this challenge every time I pick up for this albums.
Yeah.
And your first album that never came out.
Yeah.
There was one song that I used to love. But not Botswana City. Botswana City
nearly that.
Which one?
With Jabba.
There was a song that had Jabba there. Never came out. Jabba was featured on your album.
Man, I'm trying to remember.
Yo,
I don't think it was the first one though.
Which one was it? But it was recorded.
Yeah.
Skis.
I'm gonna have to dig on that one, but I do remember a conversation, because the thing is, the first Jabba feature became We Built This City after he went to Schizo's. Narasantarelukos girl already,
yeah,
one, and then Ski, man, God bless him, played him what we'd been doing, so he loved it, and then he reached out to all of us, you know, to Cab, to Samba, to myself. Unfortunately, Cab was in Cape Town. That's the only reason Cab wasn't on We Built This City. You know, but yeah, that was the first feature, and then later with Larira Bonebo, Jaiva for acceptance speech.
Yeah.
You know, but for my solo project, I don't remember us having a feature that we did go ski. You know, there's again, re go studio sky then go Jazz Works, we put something together, and then it be as a session file that never. I really wish more of us had music managers. Managers dedicated purely to just, you know, our assets, you know, are central to the business we're in. You know, it's such that whether it's planning the next production stages, you know, pre-production, you know, whether it's post, kind of also on mixing and mastering and things. Sometimes you find that projects are in there for 6 months when they should have been in there for 6 weeks. You know what I mean? Just because there really is no person who is overseeing process and project managing the thing. You know what I mean? So, matata manzi me kind of opportunity ka on the other side. Banana habana di tiro mo Botswana we're sitting at 38% youth unemployment right now.
You guys have to catch up because
yeah, you guys are doing.
I know.
And this is a serious crisis because what it means socioeconomically if young people aren't being put in the position to earn, be independent, we're not participants in this economy, and then you wonder why we're stagnating, we're not growing. You know what I mean? Whereas these very people are often ostracized because their industries are not being developed. I mean, it always shocks me. Creative industries, youth-led. By the time I was 25, I was already a very experienced person in the game. I'm 38 now. You know what I mean? And it's crazy how in a lot of ways, in other industries, I sound and my life experience and everything would be that of a 60-year-old. But I still have another 22 years before I reach 60. You know what I mean? Or 21. You know what I mean? So we're not harnessing demographic dividend, their creative industry. And especially in the global south. Because you go north, I mean, just even work culture to begin with. A 19, 20-year-old is already frontline waitering or something like that. Even that culture is dying out here. Like I say, now we used to finish school and then go get jobs. You know, in their defense, maybe the jobs aren't as open, as readily available as well. You know what I mean? By the time they're getting to mid-20s, we tell they're able to be middle management. You know, again, if you think about creative industry, by the time you're 25, you know, you're at a point where you've got enough experience to be like in a middle management kind of level. By the time you're 30, you are now supposed to be at corporate level. I'll see you or 35 or 38 or 40, you know, even 45 or 50 is youth. Whereas, dog, you go a lot of other places in the world, a 32-year-old CEO is nothing because that guy has been in the space for well over a decade. And if they already came in with certain gifts, certain outlooks and talents, already they're in a mindset mold where they are innovative enough to lead and drive industries. So long story short, for all of this youth unemployment, quit with the rhetoric. Guys, all the politicians know how to say the right things in terms of buzzwords to seem like they're tapped in. And what they end up doing is essentially robbing us of progress because they masquerade. I mean, everything happening in Botswana right now is the reveal once you pull back the curtain and you find what the Wizard of Oz is a fraud. From the electric vehicle scam, assembly, 100 million, to the Steve Harvey getting $1 billion. Mutusi. Whereas you sit there and you think this guy was sold to us as an investor. Next thing he's getting a direct appointment, Billy. For that Billy, our tax bullers aren't even creating new IP that locals have equity in. You're licensing his IP, his old IP. You know, even the fictional work that's there, none of that IP is in the hands of Botswana. And then from there you go and take a small portion, or the 20, 30 million or whatever that you say you're giving to filmmakers to give them an opportunity to do that. US government should be doing that directly. That money should have been commissioning guys. You know what I mean? I got my first chance to cut my teeth as a fiction co-director last year, courtesy of MultiChoice. Big shout out for what they did, commissioning 3 Botswana films. And shout out 27 Pictures. You know, when they got the job, they hollered at me, as green as I was. Thank you, Marcelo, for having the faith. You know, and by the way, if we don't build muscle, we can never be great. You know what I mean? You got to be on set and learn and, you know, go get burnt and, you know, go through the fires. You know what I mean? So how come MultiChoice as a private entity, Continental, understands that better than my own government at the time? You know, was more concerned, I guess, maybe with
shoulders and limitus.
You know what I mean, or whatever else they benefit, you know, the people behind some of these big deals. Because the truth of the matter is that billion, Botswana filmmakers have never even seen a tenth of that dedicated to short film production, let alone feature production. And this is not new. Harvey Weinstein came to this country with #1 ladies detective series. You know, that was a Weinstein Company production. He got, was it 14 million or whatever at the time, early 2000s. You know, again, have you poured that money into us and our films? What ended up happening at the end? This guy is literally the face of everything wrong with Hollywood and the culture. You know, he's the face of Me Too. Fun story, not even fun, horrible story. You should read Lupita Nyong'o's Me Too story. She mentions how he dangled #1 ladies detective series, apparently literally the DVD, selling the idea that I can get you onto productions like this. So I sit there and I think essentially our tech spoolers were funding his sexcapades in some ways, but they're not willing to fund our youth's development.
Phew.
Come on now.
Yo, man, you're cooking and we haven't even gotten into
We're tired, man. We're tired. We've watched this for so long. And Kore, we were pitching value, you know, to this day we're pitching value. You know what I mean? We're engaging with the new administration, hoping that now it's not people buying the industry, before. You know, it's people by and understand what their position is to help facilitate real entrepreneurs, not tenderpreneurs. I was so happy to hear our president mention that, Malop. But then what else is the rest of the ecosystem doing to support that? You know, does tax policy work for creative industries? Juanana, we in trying to deal with a mess, the penalty will even cut off the legs of your business, you know. But at the same time, you're willing to offer incentives to some foreign investor. FDI, I get it, is the gospel truth that our African leaders have always believed in. But you ignore and even sabotage us who've invested in our economies for well over 2-3 decades. You know what I mean? We've literally turned over millions, you know. And I'm not a millionaire. Where did that money go to? It went into the economy. It went into people's hands. You know, one of the reasons why I'm so blessed with great relationships is all the people I've been able to pay. So let's get to a point, Elon, where we really empower us to be able to do more, because only real entrepreneurs create value. You know what I mean? Everybody else, the dodgy guys, they scheme value. They rob us of value, you know?
Okay.
Aluta.
Yeah. Mata. Back to so you left Schizo.
Yeah.
Okay, before you, I mean, there was probably a reason for you to leave.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, because we know DIY was born after that.
Yeah, what happened was I was just an impatient kid.
Okay.
I was super impatient, and I needed to know where we're going. So after we record the album, kinda now we've got Imagination as a huge chart topper. You know, and I'm like, when are we dropping the album? And I guess he wanted to align so many other things, including with the majors. You know, I think it was Sony at the time. And I was just like, this isn't happening quick enough for me. And my feel is that if it doesn't happen quick enough, we're gonna lose steam and I'm just gonna be another one-hit wonder type guy, you know. So instantly for me it was like, once the year elapsed for the contract, I was like, I can't renew because I don't want to be sitting at the end of another year waiting to see what happened. And you know, we were laughing about this actually with Ski because it's so much love, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How I was a very ballsy kid, right? And like you're saying, DIY was born from then. I registered DIY, the original DIY, when I was in second year of university, you know. And that's when I was like, gang, I need to work on a project and release a project. Because for me, albums have always been what makes an artist. You know, I grew up in a time, where you had to know Ready to Die, you had to know All Eyes on Me, you had to know Reasonable Doubt, Illmatic, you know, Enter the 36 Chambers. You had to know those projects, you know, the same way that eventually you had to know Omang, you had to know Mafuku Ame, and you know what I mean, Oracle Sex, you know, Sky Happy Hour, you know what I mean. So it was just a question of if I'm going to establish myself as not just a good songwriter or artist that can give you a song, I need to give you a full journey where you can connect with me. And that's what Freshly Baked turned into. I was very fortunate, again, the timing of things, that I just got to Joburg, just got to Monash. I'm trying to get out there, you know, because obviously there's a new scene for me, you know. Like I said, I did Bonobo Rap Activity Jam, but even on campus, you know, if there was an opportunity, I'd jump on the mic. And I remember there was some little campus event or whatever, jumped on the mic, and my nigga Don Juan happened to be there, you know, because he literally lived next door to the Monash campus.
Was it
nightly event thing, you know. I think he was messing with some girls or whatever from campus, you know. And he literally lived on the estate next door, you know. So he comes through and he reaches out to me after the performance. Yeah, that was dope, whatever. You know, we should connect and stuff. We actually did connect. Ended up going to studio. It was, I know. We need to.
Josie.
No, but it's worldwide. I mean,
Is it?
Yeah, you know the whole have your people call my people.
Yeah.
And there are no people, no calls. You know what I mean? You know, it was really amazing how me and Don, I feel like, were the same individual in different expressions. Like, we're both 86 kids. I remember we used to joke and say we should start a company called 86 Kid or something, you know. And for him as a producer, for me as an MC, it's funny that our musical tastes were very similar. We both just didn't like rap, like a lot of times. And actually when we'd go places or even hang with music, you know, we'd be playing other things. We'd be like R&B, soul, you know, house, you know, electro stuff. We always we're very eclectic, you know. The same with guys like Ross and, you know, a lot of the OC collective, you know, Beijing and PH Roix and them, you know. Well, the different members that came at different times, you know what I mean. Look at a guy like AB Crazy as well, legend, who at one point was with that. If you hear the soul samples that he digs out, you know, guys will teach you about music, you know. Guys will teach you eras that even you didn't know before, you know. So I got that instantly with him. And, you know, the outlook I think we had, even in terms of being these bold kids who are just unapologetic about how we want not only Motswako or South African rap to sound, or BW hip hop to sound, but African hip hop. You know, I mean, that's how we ended up even getting to, as much as we started out with Freshly Baked. They did, OC probably had like 2-3 beats on Freshly Baked. And then by the time we're doing Flipside now, we're knee deep in the game together. It's Ross pretty much dominating like 60, 70, if not 80% of that album, you know, beautifully so, you know. But then by the time we get to African Time now, like African Time is me and Don's.
Before we talk African Time, how did the feature aka Stogiti happen?
Oh yeah,
That's What's Up.
That's What's Up.
Yeah.
That's What's Up was a mixtape song originally, because we after we did the strategic partnership with Octave Coupley,
Yes.
they managed to get a license deal. Yeah, with I think it was EMI at the time, and then EMI was acquired by Universal.
Yeah.
So we were literally in the middle of making music for EMI, you know, trying to build a project. So, you know, the story back then, the mixtape was what you build hype with, you know, and I think some of this industry wisdom needs to come back. That's What's Up as a mixtape song, you know, was already so much fire just even before we released it, you know, just from the conversations we were having with production and Circle, that we were like, okay, this needs, you know, features. We need to open it up a little bit. And then Stogie reached out after I'd put out a freestyle over Common's The Sixth Sense beat. I think I put it on SoundCloud or something. And when he reached out, like, he was impressed and everything. I was like, yo, much love, man. Obviously, he's somebody I'd looked up to since, I remember the very first song I heard was Once Upon a Time in Africa with Sifiso Sudan. Still one of my favorite SA hip-hop songs, you know. And I was like, this is my chance, you know, come through, jump on the track. And he agreed, and I was touched, you know. Sent the song, he sent it back quick. Funny thing, there was a third verse where me and him went back and forth before AKA came into it. Still looking for that version, actually. And then Quack D, Tsepo Seletso, who I grew up with in Block 9 from high school, the Lachai crowd, you know. He was in Joburg already now in the video production space, working with Bo Molotov, Nick, Molotov Cocktail. And they were shooting Jealousy for AKA at the same time. We just finished the original version of That's What's Up with just me and Dumi. And then he's like, yo, we should get Mega onto this. So D is literally the guy who made it happen. You know, somewhere in the mix between them shooting the Jealousy video, he got to hear it. And then he came to studio. I always say he listened, and he was just like, he wants... I think he was coming from somewhere, hadn't had a chance to eat or whatever, and he specifically wanted wings. So yeah, like them hot wings were the game changer, you know what I mean? Because I don't think a lot of people remember at the time, you know the story with hip hop. Once you get successful in mainstream, everybody wants to question your rap skills.
Yeah.
It felt like some people still wanted to act like he couldn't rap.
This was an opportunity for him.
He showed out, you know what I mean? I feel like he really showed out, and you know, shout out to Megacy, you know, after he passed, you know, God rest his soul. A couple of accounts were saying this is one of the most underrated AKA verses. I mean, even for Channel O's, I think they did a top 10 features. I think it was at number 3 or something like that.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean? So yeah, mad love for Mega Man. Like, you know, love for his family and all of his collaborators and conspirators, co-conspirators, you know. Yanga was here the other week. I got to meet him for the first time. We never really chopped it up much in Joburg, you know, and it was so great, you know, kicking it, like chatting at least for a bit with him, and then listening to Lord Faku. Brilliant album, by the way, you know, because it felt a bit like a bit of Keenan, because obviously what he did in terms of production for AKA, you know,
intentional. Yeah,
he really gave a lot of AKA's sound a young identity, you know what I mean? And it was really, really great to hear that, you know.
How did you shoot that video? Because shooting a music video with that has features.
Yeah.
Hey, Pilale Matsapa.
We were lucky, I think, because it was a weekday, and it was early morning for some reason. I don't understand why we were shooting at like late night, you know. And again, I'm talking like Boma 11, 12, going into like, I think we wrapped at 3 in the morning or something. It was an old abandoned building on Kurenberg. Yeah. And I don't know, I think we were just lucky for the schedules. I don't remember which time of the year it was, but it must have been off season, maybe even winter, you know, because that's honestly the best time. I was talking about something. Booking, but to prioritize a span, and you can't blame them. You know what I mean? So I mean that's why you see all these videos where the guy isn't even there. Like,
then came African time.
Yes, man. I thank God for African time. Like, I feel like African time was the moment I got a chance to connect everything I felt as a kid growing up, you know, because I was very, you know, conscious. You know, I think I grew up raised with a sense of consciousness, with identity, you know. My parents, you know, both moms and pops, I think are very, you know, proud Africans, you know, and proud Botswana, you know, but with a global outlook as well, you know. I remember growing up, again, obviously being in this region at that time, you know, you had to know apartheid stories, and you had to understand the implications, and, you know, it was a scary thing. It was a painful thing to be a 6-7-year-old watching Cry Freedom, or, you know, later Bo Sarafina and all of that, you know, because we got it. As much as, you know, people often think kids' intellect doesn't process certain things, kids understand, trust me, you know. And then later on, by the time I'm switched on to a certain type of hip hop that I'm picking myself, you know, I'm listening to you know, acts like Dead Prez, you know, Let's Get Free is one of my favorite albums to this day. And imagine I'm playing this in high school, you know, we're right in that ruckus era, you know, the most Defs and Talibs, and, you know, guys are really teaching us a sense of consciousness, you know, things fall apart, you know, the roots, you know. So I think it taught me to really like look at life holistically, you know, socioeconomically, spiritually, you know, all these things, you know, from an identity standpoint, from an academic standpoint, you know. Always love that intelligent hip hop that makes you read something, that makes you have to understand something, you know. Even more so kantilengana le hanong re tsana mo motswakong re tsana mo Setswaneng se leng gore kana kosgela ha sore ne ke pasa Setswana that well. In fact, for standard 7 I didn't even write it in my PSLE, you know, because we had the option not to, you know. And then in high school again, did I write it in high school? No. Yeah, I didn't, you know, for IGCSE. It was you know, how to ho when now we start consuming it in our own way, was similar or no, but our language is beautiful, you know. You know, rekasi tuta, you know, rasekona, rasetswakanya, you know. Tota ne re jisiwa ke ma teacher. And all of that for me led to a point where by the time I'm doing African time, there's also the element, excuse me, of being a university student. Critical thinking, you know, and analytical thinking and all of that during a time where there's an Africa-rise narrative, you know. We're looking for ourselves too culturally, or okay, globally. We say we're hip-hop, we're MCs, we're influenced by what's coming from New York, from LA, from Atlanta, or whatever. But what's coming from Gabs, what's coming from, you know, Congo and all of this, you know. Even lineage-wise, Kanye West, when he samples Jackson 5 for H to the Izzo, is connecting to his musical lineage, African-American cultural heritage. Same way that when Burna, you know, personifies Fela today, there's a high life Afrobeat connection, and it gives a certain richness to, you know, what the product is. And these are the things that I felt like we needed to look for, you know. And Don, you know, God bless his soul, understood that and was even pioneering it, you know, because in a lot of ways, Don really exec produced African time in a creative way that you know, people often underrate, or I would say downplay the title of what exec producing can really be, in a creative direction kind of element, and space, not just, from a business or project management standpoint. He understood the issues. He understood why it was important for us to speak about, wars and conflicts and peace and all these things that are unfashionable, even today in mainstream hip hop, for us to speak about the social ills in our Africa Rising narrative, in our, whitewashing of African pain and blood, sweat, tears, especially for people at the bottom tier of society, you know what I mean? Ka gore rona re sharp in the burbs, our Africa can look like the Western democracies we aspire to re sharp, you know what I mean? So telling all those stories, and even an understanding of what is Pan-Africanism, to a young hip-hop guy back then or even now. I mean, I remember one guy, I think it was African Gateway, said that album would only be understood in 2023, and it was one of the biggest compliments I've ever had received in my life, because that was Afrofuturism. That was an understanding of what, we are gifted enough at times to be able to predict the future, to make it, to point to issues in our, zeitgeist, what we can decode better as artists, sometimes even more than technocrats in certain fields. I mean, it's brilliant when you collaborate and do all of that, to unlock even their potential more. I mean, I look at what we're doing with the climate change docuseries now. We're talking climate action, we're talking adaptation, mitigation, ESG space, you know what I mean? And all of this stuff, believe it or not, there is a creative entrepreneurship element, my entertainment background, my understanding of pop culture, my entrepreneurial approach is able to unlock and bring value to even the biggest climate activist by themselves is not going to be able to do, or administrator, or even green VC or whatever. You know what I mean? So yeah, African Time for me, I think, unlocked so much. I don't even think I'd be able to do the things I'm doing today if I didn't delve deep into that identity search and just that socioeconomic, historical, cultural, anthropological kind of outlook on what music and hip hop can be.
What did you study? Because
business and commerce. I studied marketing and management in undergrad, and then I did a BA honors, motion picture, film, and television for postgrad. So the first one was Goma Nash, South Africa, and then postgrad was after Botswana. But by the way, one of the things that for me I think has been a real lifesaver, I've always been curious as a kid. I enjoyed biology and chemistry just as much as I enjoyed English literature and economics, you know what I mean? And a lot of it I think would stem from the fact that even what I'd consume at home, watching TV or reading or whatever, was very holistic. Like, I was into nature documentaries and interested in them the same way I was interested in futurist science and tech development shows. Like, I remember a show called Beyond 2000 back in the day.
That was a big show.
That was a huge show. Like, you'd sit and watch and want to see, what would the inventions in the future be like, and you know what I mean? So that curiosity has stayed with me. And then being, again, 1 hour, an educator on one side, and then a former game ranger and somebody who ended up going into wildlife admin as well, and then eventually even ranching, I think even the influence from these two different types of parents, where one is way more super academic, super sciencey in kind of like, a classroom way, and one who's, I'll say academic in a outdoorsy kind of experiential, get your hands dirty type of thing, because time, like I say, from game ranger to moraka to, so you end up finding that you're curious about a lot of things. And even when I think back to my grandmother and Simo and the things she do that would interest me, whether it's we rasogwapa or wadila, and she knows how to make her own house, or kumasimo go lema go leta, go roba, go pota, all these different processes they just kind of, I don't know, if you're an inquisitive person, they make you wonder. And I think the more you wonder, the more you will learn about things that you didn't even go to school for. I mean, in a lot of ways, some people would argue I have no business in spaces like climate action or ESG, but once you really immerse yourself in something, you learn so much. I mean, from the time in 2019 when I had the concept, pitched it to the Climate Change Network, before we ended up getting a slot on BTV for season 1 that was funded via US Embassy grant at the time. When I look back from 2019 to today, the things I've learned, and how now in spaces with these folks, I get the conversations, and where I come from even now, some of my entrepreneurial outlook, is able to share a thought that maybe some of them might not have seen. I mean, I'll use the EV example. I laughed, if not cried, when our past government talked about manufacturing a electric vehicle. Because my first thought was just, as a business student, even as a year 1 student, as a case study, you'd see there's no way that our government is going to make a product like that more efficiently, more effectively than private sector players who are already in the space. But whether you're talking startups like Tesla, are literally hinged on this type of technology, or private sector players like other auto players have been there for a century and now are leveraging that learning curve to transfer it to EV.
Especially because Gavin, it COVID. And before even with all the money in the world, our government is typically inefficient, it's ineffective, high resourceful, it's not lean, mean and agile enough to be in a competing space, private business, unless if even you go PPP or something and create what essentially becomes a business entity, right? So when you look at something like that, why did we pour so much effort, so much money into essentially a project that's going nowhere? The end game should have been clear and apparent from jump. We're going nowhere with this. Whereas if you take, again, an entrepreneurial case study look, looking at our landscape, our resources, what actually do we have opportunities to build? Solar rich, battery technology is huge in the solar space. Developing a longer lasting, cheaper, more effective battery is the race constantly. Why can't we turn into a hub for battery development such that you're inviting a lot of these big players to come and set up research institutes here and the like? Even on a local level, maybe and that's one of those PPPs, developing companies where we're developing our own batteries to go to market. All those kids coming out of Boost who are unemployed as we speak right now, merely like geniuses, like literally rocket scientists, baba, you know what I mean? But they're unemployed on the streets, or they're underemployed. Stop playing, bro. You know what I mean? So these are the types of things where you sit and think, well, okay, clearly the people who are building these things have or if they don't have a sense of business acumen, they ignore it, obviously for political favor or whatever gain. The same way that I'll mention, and this one must be an agenda or every young person, everybody who cares about youth unemployment, like I said, 38% now, needs to be considering. There's unemployment, there's also underemployment. So my intern. Our government started an internship program about 2 administrations ago now. It's already graduating. Set at wage rate about 2,000 pula odd.
Mm.
A month.
And mind you, when I was leaving varsity before those things began, the job I quit, I only worked for 1 year. I guess almost girl. The first half at some smaller entity, and then the last half at a news company. It's more like one of our most reputable media publishing companies. They own the Gazette newspaper, if you know that. Shout out the Olsons.
Yeah,
you know. My job that I quit was 11,000 pula salary plus benefits. You know what I mean? In this day and age, look, and this is in a marketing space, in a marketing exec role. You know, in this day and age, while we tell for that same workload, that same profile, well, we feel like one fortunate to be earning about 6,000 or something. You know what I mean? And we haven't even talked inflation. We haven't even talked forget the inflation, the wages, life, living standards, the cost. I mean, just between COVID and now, the food inflation is insane. You know what I mean? So you sit there and you think, okay, you took wage equilibrium in the labor market. You dropped it for graduates to 2,000. From what used to be over 10,000, right? And again, kind of that's even higher if you think about it, certain specialist careers. Why haven't we reformed that program since? You know what I mean? Because there's no point in this idea that people are at least waking up to go somewhere or whatever. They're going to a dead end. An internship is supposed to be a 1-year program, max. It turns into full employment, or you are let go to go pursue other things. We've had interns in our government system, have had the renewal, let's say the agreement for 4 or 5 years, maybe even more. I wouldn't be surprised to find an intern who's been in government system for a decade. And then if you think about what does it mean for all the other youth out there, it kind of as the biggest employer, as the most influential in a developing economy, whatever government does, sets the tone. And
corporate.
Yes, it was so bad that this is probably still the case because like I say, there's never been a reform to that program. Interns were being given to private sector companies to go and do work at times they should be employed directly by that company at full salary and everything. You know what I mean? So this thing is a real problem. How labor market they are and youth. And by the way, again, I'm not a ecos major. I'm sure the ecos majors batla break it down, batla critica and thing. But even off of basic ecos one hela labor market Philips Keveri ecos 2. Guys, I am telling you, that move has been detrimental to the quality and living standard for young people and young professionals, graduates in this country. But at the same time, when you sit and think about the talent pool and database, human capital you've got there, it could easily be turning into new companies. Imagine the internal guys, music industry or nawa so harna di manager, harna di publicist, we've got all this talent, you know. Akoli grouping holo na bali rileng PR, bali rileng ing. Let's start a venture ilong gore lekata go bereka le bo DIY entertainment kamoso DIY entertainment mi bile bereka le bo le monka crossing over to Northwest to SA for even bigger markets. Collaboratively we can do regional work, continental, international work. You know, there's no reason why when you look at both Black Panther and all of that, our own industries, our own production studios, our own governments should be driving those types of things, not giving money to Baitusi. You know what I mean? No, it's not personal. It's not personal. I would love to hang with him, dog. I loved Mr. Hightower. I grew up on what's that show? The Steve Harvey show. I love Kings of Comedy.
Sure.
To this day, that's still one of the greatest stand-up DVDs you'll ever get. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But
Maria,
as a business person, as somebody who was supposedly an investor or a helper or whatever, it really hurt a lot of us. And by the way, now for me, it's also quite deep when we look at the fact that the African connection. You know, I'll be very frankly honest, as a Pan-African, my connection to an African American is not the same as my connection to just any American. My connection with an African American is way deeper. You know what I mean? That's why some of the conversations I've had in places like there are mind blowing, you know, because there's a shared struggle. Like, first time I ever saw a whites only, no blacks type sign was in this studio in Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, actually, Biggie's neighborhood and stuff. This Trinidadian guy who we're recording with, I was recording with this Ghanaian dude, forgot his name, but I see this as throwaway stuff, hella little, and this is stuff saying what obviously his the guy's parents had experienced, you know, and had lived through. You know what I mean? And it makes me think a lot about, geez, the stuff that I saw at the Apartheid Museum when, actually I'm lying, first time I saw those signs was at the Apartheid Museum. Let me say outside of a museum setting. You know, when I think back to what I've experienced and what I've seen in South Africa, I've had the K word used on me in South Africa. Yeah, by a landlord, or a property keeper or whatever, who was mad at the fact that we were making noise, getting turned up as university students, and kana negolo manatere like a pull up power, renta in upmarket areas where they're like, what are these little doing out here? You know what I mean? So I know what some of that, you know, at least to a small degree, feels like and tastes like, you know what I mean? The same way that they know it, even when it's not even loud in your face, even if it's just the little microaggressions in a society that doesn't, you know, value them. You know what I mean? So yeah, for me that perspective, as a black man, as an African, you know, you come and take from African republics who are in dire need of development. You know, right now our clinics and our hospitals don't have medicines. You know what I mean? We've got hospitals and clinics where it's buildings, there are no beds. You know, the school kids don't have furniture. I heard one school is cutting their feeding program. For the longest time in Botswana, public schools always provided food for kids. And for some kids, that's the only meal they have. Oof. You know what I mean? So you're sitting with a Billy somewhere there, you know, the equivalent of just under maybe $100 million that you can proudly say this is good business. Come on, bro.
That's it.
That ain't real, man. God ain't done with me yet. Like I know, I love that thing that he used to say in that one stand-up act, and I really, really hope, you know, just from a consciousness standpoint, he looks at that type of strategy. Because guess what? If he was coming here and partnering with us, creating new IP so that we're Think Like a Man, which are written by Botswana, performed by them. Of course, they have their equity as a co-production company, not needing government money. You don't need our money here. There's plenty money in Hollywood, plenty VC money that you should be bringing here, not the other way.
So 20 years ago, Haneke, you were not this vocal about Gavi.
I was, you know,
okay,
like
I agree you.
Botswana just generally. Yes. We're hardball, as Afrikaners will say. You know what I mean? We're tired. We're sick of all of this corruption, cronyism, you know, complacency, you know, carelessness, you know, confusion. All of these things, they have led us to a point where we're worried about government paying salaries for civil servants, when we were the fastest rising developing economy for the longest time. IMF stats, like from the 80s to early 90s, you know. We, as Shilato once said, you know, Dr. Shilato, very respected, you know, she's superwoman, professor, educator, activist. There was a time when she was in Doha, and it connected with me because I once got a chance to do a layover there in Baratsingamo Hoteling, so got to see a bit of it. By the way, these are places there's missiles flying into after that conflict, Malo. So when we connect, you know, it shouldn't take you being in a place to understand there's people there who matter and what. But again, world politics for another day. One thing Dr. Shilato made, the point she raised about Doha in comparison to Botswana that time and Qatar and all of that, was the progress they made in such a short time, and how they were able to take their resource, their blessing, which was oil, and turn it into so much progress and shared wealth is in the hands of people. Just yes, man, this is not the level of development we know. I mean, the hotel we were staying at that time, I think to them it must have been just a 3-star or whatever, but to me I was like, what the hell is this? You know what I mean? It was incredible.
Where was this?
In Doha.
Oh yeah.
So that's the type of place where we expect Botswana to be today. Given the fact that, like I'm saying, from those stats, the 80s, early 90s, I remember when I go Dubai, in Hollanda, well, maybe it's over a decade ago now, or they show you that big mural in Basupa, the progress they made from it being a desert. Yeah. Literally, dog. These kids are my 80, 90, but guys were visionary enough and disciplined enough, to be able to take resource and pour it into, developing something amazing. Say now is pretty much running the world. The world is looking towards there. Sports entertainment. Where do people want to go host games and this, that? Even big time players now are playing in the Saudi league. You know what I mean? So it's just like, man, I really am deeply cut and hurt by the failures that our leaders, literally oversaw. And the thing that irks me the most is that we would constantly try bring solutions. Constantly. We knocked on doors so many times. We still knocking on doors, still presenting solutions. They make sense. You know what I mean? That have value. We've changed the game. For brunch, but still, guys want to deny you, want to tell you want to be bureaucratic, want to be petty and personal. And it's the same even some of the private sector approaches. Re petty brayaka, re libile dimpa tsa rona hela le di mortgage tsa rona at the expense of the people. And at a time like this, when I need everybody to remember this and understand all of this is man-made. Suffering, this is man-made.
You guys have the biggest diamond.
You see what I'm saying? You know what I mean? And I always say, what would be the narrative right now had the BDP won? You think they'd be telling us what things, the real scenario, transparent, accountability.
Of course not.
So, like, yo, man.
Yo, this was not about, this was not supposed to be, but we are here.
It's bigger than hip hop.
Yes.
Press said it's bigger than hip hop.
Two things I want to ask you about, right? So you had an album between African Time and War and Peace.
Yes.
That never came out.
Pieces of the Now. I did a deal with Sony Music Africa. Very proud of that deal because I negotiated it myself. Went there with a project. They did a buyback. I'm excited. 3-album deal. The idea was album a year. Ended up being 2 singles from that first project, and it never made sense to me. Just from a business standpoint, I'm like, why would you buy a product to shelve it? There's always been music industry conspiracies where you can be signed to be shelved, all of that, so that you don't compete with Rasta, all these things. I've never really bought more into some of those theories, but I do know it's not to be naive or anything. But what I learned and that I found interesting during the Hollywood strikes period was, what companies would do for tax write-offs, at least in the States, in terms of, producing content but then not releasing it. The Warner Brothers versus Acme did that with that movie, and what so many of us wanted to see. So I kept wondering, what was it that? Because musically, it was a beautiful project. Like, geez, incredible production from Botrompi, Beat Muchini, Skizo was on there, my nigga Keizo, who was also affiliated with OC from back in the day. I mean, I had incredible young features like O-Star, great MC who I'm featured on his recent debut. It's called African as, you'll finish the F. And then, a Steady Onks, the poet. So I was really looking forward to all of this, being a moment, not just for myself, but also for carrying along, these new talents, from Botswana, getting them on a major release. Story some major subotoko because we tell a lot how priority our the 2-3 people you had Lipusha independent who you are a priority for every day. You go further with that little mokoro than sometimes the big cruise liner. Because the cruise liner is so busy. And then another thing that I found to be quite disappointing was what I felt was analysis paralysis on the side of the label. Because I went there and so much love for the label head at the time when I got the deal, but he left even before I left. Refilo Ramogase, of course, legendary Motswako Lista. I say he's a Motswako Lista exec, right? Maftown Heights, all of that. And he gets the culture, he gets the music. I think it was in the Michael Jackson room actually where we're talking, and I'm like, I'm not here to try chase what's going on with mainstream and the kids and all of that. At that point, I'm already 31. I just turned 30 the previous year. I'm already loving adult contemporary hip hop. But at that moment, I feel like the album About Nothing, 444. I mean, even if you go back to Nas album with the Khaleesi's dress on the cover, that was adult contemporary hip hop. And like I said, Motswako, it's Okhakala with that as well. So my thing was just for African hip hop, let's make adult contemporary hip hop a sound which is appealing to the guys who grew up with 80s, 90s rap. Because what are they listening to today? You know what I mean? In all honesty, outside of internationally, movements like Griselda saved a lot of guys who were starving, because a lot of us stay on the same playlists because we can't relate to some of this new vibe. It's only some of us can cross over a bit. I love a guy like Roddy Ricch, for instance, who I think as a melody rapper still has great bars and, but my whole thing was, let's feed that market. Let's speak to that market. Ever so often we can cross over, do something a little trendy, whether it's the piano influence or whatever, like I ended up doing with Kotsi when I released solo after. But yeah, I feel like especially then piano kananong is really taking over. I left that deal right after COVID, like right after COVID was breaking and all of that, and I'm like, guys, we should have been, by the time COVID was happening, we should have been on album 2. You know what I mean? Because we did the deal, like I said, the buyback started, from agreement, and then from signing the artist deal, then the buyback. By end of 2017, we were done with all of that. So in all honesty, that should have dropped 2018. And then 2019, we should have been on album 2, such that by the time COVID comes, already we're so far ahead. But 2 singles deep, I'm like, am I just gonna sit here, and the period has already elapsed again, am I just gonna sit here and wait for nothing, or do I get my gutsy young Zeus who built DIY and go back out there? And that's exactly what I did. And then we relaunched zeusdeuce.com, put out the Draking mixtape on there, still available for free download. Sony Music Publishing cleared that as our cover, artistic expression, non-commercial. These are disclaimers I'm putting out there for Drake's legal team.
Why is it?
Hey, they're not like us. Okay, let me not do that. So leaving that scenario, I'm like, let me go out there and do better for myself, because I was like starving with a deal more than without a deal. Because independent, I've always been pushing myself.
In your company, do it yourself.
DIY, baby. At least But to expect that you're gonna get cake and entire confection aisle, but then I'm gonna let Papa our
That's insane.
dog.
And your last album that you released, in
Yeah.
you are in.
That's War and Peace, Disc 1 War. Actually, 2 projects, because after the Draking mixtape, you know, locked in on so much recording, and then somewhere in the mix of things, concept there, War and Peace, distill. But I found that I was making songs, some from like a very angry, hurt, dark place, you know, COVID, so much loss, you know, including family close, you know, Jabba and our movement. Ghana Motswako has gone through a serious depression after all of the pain, but drama, you know what I mean? And the other half was like kind of like this beautiful, bright, healing kind of sound. So I decided, okay, let's go War and Peace, classic art theme, you know, Ice Cube, Tolstoy, you know what I mean? Like, I literally wrote an article about how I find it interesting that that concept can inspire, you know, a prolific, you know, early Russian author to a West Coast gangster. You know, literally separated by centuries. You know? So to me, it's a yin and yang life type thing, and I've really enjoyed being able to get out the wrath of it all. And it's funny how, as I was feeling these things, I started seeing all the conflict and war Ekareng has escalated again in the world. At the time, Ghana, before we even had that thing distill itself concept. Next thing, it's Russia invading Ukraine. You know, next thing, not so long after, Hobo Sudan. You know, now you're looking at Congo. There's an ongoing genocide. Just the other day, we're on the brink of World War III. You know, and it's just like, what the hell is happening? You know what I mean? It's clear to me that it somehow connects between what's intrinsic and what's out there. You know what I mean? So yeah, the other album was Botswana Renaissance Art, and that's a big album. I beg Motswako listas and I plead with you to go and listen to, especially outside of Botswana, because for me, one, it's an honor to have been able to record a project with Nomadic. We'd done collabo songs before, but I always say Nomadic is the first guy I ever heard rap in Botswana. Around 96, around 96 maybe even 95 odd. I need confirmation out when did Malala Sui come out, Ghetto Flavor. You know, Brando is a vocalist for that group. You know, shout out Mike Proctor, you know, one of our big
I'm a fan.
Producers.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
Who really cut the mold of the industry. You know, I mean, BK Proctor Kana Ojabo. So I really feel like we need to, you know, celebrate that legacy more and the connection between them, you know.
Oh, it's not the same person. I know BK Proctor.
No, BK is his nephew.
No way.
For real. Mike Proctor produced Bo Ghetto Flavor back in the day.
Yeah, I know Ghetto Flavor.
Yeah.
That's dope, man.
Yeah. So you know, yeah, I've even gone off on a tangent now. Nomadic, you know. So the honor of being able to record with your, you know, beyond icon to me, your teacher, your guru, the person who taught you how to do this thing, you know, is a huge honor. I always say it's quite sad that we have such a shallow view of art and what we do in spaces like hip hop. When you are hanging with Nomadic, you know, it's like the same as being able to kick it with Curtis Blow or LL Cool J. You know what I mean? You're literally hanging with the guys that are the template, the benchmark, the founders of the space, you know? So that album to me, and then obviously just as an MC, he's so prolific to me. Like, at this age, Nomadic is still sharper than a lot of 16, 17-year-olds, and even hungrier. You know, there's a line somewhere where I talk about my dude's got like 6 projects unreleased on that thingy. And I meant it. When we started really chopping it up, he's in Joburg, you know, when we started recording this album and all of that. And I want us to get into Botswana Renaissance Art too. my dude was playing me a bunch of projects that are just unreleased. In fact, he sent me something recently, songs for pops. I haven't even started to play it yet because you need to sit down and have clear time space for a nomadic album. Pula Citizen, to me, is the quintessential Setswana rap album. I won't even call it a Motswako album, Setswana rap album. For me, it's up there with maybe like Amafoko Ame. Because the prolific Setswana and writing, Amafoko Ame is just, So to me, it's like, yo, this guy is just out of this world, and I need everybody to understand and see that and listen. And especially when you look at his journey, So those two projects are the last projects that I released. But literally last week, I put out a new single/singles called We Pray and We Pray Too. And it's more social media. I put them on as free songs to listen to across platforms, at Zeus Africa, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. TikTok. So my feel was just even just conceptually, dieting and I wasn't meant to be a rollout. It's their prayers. We pray and we pray too are prayers for me, and interfaith prayers. Because what I'm looking for with the peace side of the album is for us to really get to a point where there's a sense of us seeing that humanity is greater than our own self-interest or our own creed and culture community, So we pray for world peace and personal peace and just progress. So just the whole idea of peace, resonating not just within ourselves but in the culture and the music globally in all we do, man, because in all honesty, I think we have a real big problem right now in terms of mindsets, hearts, minds, so that's the reason why I push for that rollout. Alien Water was just like, I put Ray on social media free. We're gonna go to zeusdeuce.com with a free download as well. And before going to streaming platforms, obviously. But then the album is coming. Disc 2 piece, artwork and all of that is done. Mix and master. I mean, there's 1 or 2 more songs, what I'm hoping, feature here and there. But generally, we're pretty much ready to give you this thing. Maybe springish. Yeah.
Yo, Zeus, nalo enaro kabu alsa
straight.
There's so many things that are left out because nalo enaro talk at part 2.
Yeah.
It's an emergency.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for showing up. Always showing up. Always. One of the few people that showed up, I'm also got tape 1.
Thank you for always inviting us.
Yeah, man.
I don't take it lightly. This train is interesting. Out of this railroad is the same one that leads all the way to past Mafikeng and all.
Yeah.
It's a pity or a passenger train. We need to get it back. We need to connect northwestern Botswana even bigger. It breaks my heart that the amazing work you did. Woo! Yeah, I bet the train is coming. The work you did, the work Jeba did, the work that the Republic frontliners, the statesmen, Botuksi, Bomulimi, Morafe, our big bros, what they did to unify us, as nations. Kana Motswako has unified Botswana, especially between northwestern Botswana, more than any efforts the Botswana Republic or the South African Republic. So our governments need to see what it is. All we need to do is add fuel to this fire. This is a huge cultural asset. This is like reggae to Jamaica. I loved when Staga talked about the impact of reggae globally, culture, socioeconomically, and how it's a tiny island with a population that we can compete with. The greatness in their athletics, in their sprinting and all of that. We mirror that on our track and field excellence, Let's make something that can compete with K-drama and K-pop. You know what I mean? That's where it's at. How palisebe? I read to say, bless.
Thanks, Maji. That is it. Signing out.